Quick disclaimer. This podcast is not meant to be professional advice of any kind. It is meant to be informative and entertaining. If you plan to make any changes to your health routines, please see the appropriate professionals before doing so. Welcome, everyone, to episode 247 of the AGEIST Podcast. I'm David Stewart, and as usual, I'm here with my brilliant co-host, Margaret May. Margaret, good to see you. What's going on today?
Good to see you too, David. Just a lovely summery day here on Cape Cod. But today we are talking about John Coyle, and this conversation really got me thinking differently about time. He just had such a unique way of switching our perspective around time and how we have control over creating time for ourselves. He is an Olympian, author, and expert on time perception. And like I just mentioned, this is not your average conversation. John gets into how to design time, stretch it, and even multiply it through deeply memorable experiences.
And I'm going to tell you right now, David, how you're experiencing time right now does not matter when it comes to your sense of time in your life. What matters is what's remembered. You are the sum of your memories. The more of them you have, the more recallable they are, the longer you've lived. Simple as that. You cannot expect low risk time investments to bring high returns in terms of your time perception. Time and money are fungible. You're trading your time for money your whole life. It's time to trade your money for time. Go buy yourself an experience for yourself, your loved ones, your kids, your family, your extended family. Go buy them something that's worth remembering.
Yeah, this is one of the most personally impactful sessions I've ever spoken to. This idea that time is really based on our memory of time and that we can impact these memories. So as John will tell us, the difference between Chronos time and Kairos time. And if you pack your life with Kairos time, Chronos time doesn't matter as much. Super interesting. After the conversation with John, we've got 3 news stories that Margaret's brought up for our discussion.
Plus, this week in the newsletter, we're spotlighting April Uchitel, a visionary changemaker and valued voice with experience in fashion, beauty, and tech. And if you're looking for a summery grill recipe that checks all the boxes on flavor and health, we've got these mustard marinated chicken skewers that you're really going to want to try.
All that and more coming right up after a quick word from our sponsors. I keep one of these in my glove box, another in my gym bag. Maui Nui's venison snack sticks are my go-to when I need clean, high-protein fuel on the move. 10 grams of protein, 0 junk, and somehow they taste amazing. Right now, Maui Nui is offering a free 12-pack of their jerky sticks with your first order of $79 or more. Just go to mauinuivenison.com/ageist to grab yours. That's MAUINUI venison.com/ageist. Go try them out. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to Element, the zero sugar electrolyte drink mix that's become part of my daily ritual. Whether I'm working out or just powering through the day, it keeps me feeling sharp and hydrated. Try it for yourself. Go to drinkelement.com/ageist and get a free 8-serving sample pack with any purchase. That's drinklmnt.com/ageist. Today's show is brought to you in part by Fatty 15, an incredible breakthrough in healthy aging. Fatty 15 is the first supplement to feature C15, a newly discovered essential fatty acid that helps repair and protect your cells as you age. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you get older. Get 15% off your 90-day starter kit at fatty15.com/ageist with code AGEIST at checkout. Let's give John Coyle a call right now. We're going to have a chat about time. John, great to see you today.
Great to see you, David.
Where does this podcast find you, John?
I am in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, do you live there?
I do currently, yeah. It's quite hot.
I was just going to say, what's the number today?
Today, we're very lucky. It's only 98. Yesterday, it was 112.
Do you like the heat?
No.
Oh, you live in the wrong place.
Well, I mean, it's only June and July. The rest of the year, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, okay. Very good. There's a lot that I want to dive into here, but before we begin talking about time and some of these things, I want you to talk to our audience a little bit about your background. You have an extraordinary background in athletics. Once we get into this, I'm going to surmise that is your connection to time. What I'm reading here is when you were in your teens, you 7 sport state championships in Michigan, which I read that and I thought maybe 1 would be great. You did 7. You won a silver medal speed skating, 5,000 meter relay. That was in 94. And You were an athlete all through college. What was your attraction to athletics?
I was just sort of very fortunate to stumble into that. I had some endogenous strengths, some native strengths when I was a kid. My dad got me a bike when I was 5 years old that I wore the tires out repeatedly. And so he kept getting me nicer and nicer bikes to the point where when I was 8 years old, he got me a very nice, what we would call road bike today, 10 speed about at the time. And he invited me to go on some tours with him. He was a cycling tourist. And so I did a 35 miler and then a 50 miler. And then eventually I did a 100 miler, which they call a century. In the summer of my 8th year, I did 13 century rides, which, if you think about it, how many kids on the planet did 13 100-mile rides at age 8? I gotta guess probably one.
You.
So I was lucky to fall into my very limited area of native strengths really early in life and be able to follow through on those.
I know you won on short tracks, but you've done a lot of other things. Are you more, say, power anaerobically inclined or aerobically inclined?
I'm a complete anaerobic athlete. I'm 100% sprinter, all fast twitch. I have no real endurance. The way that it works in longer sports, and this works for climbing and sometimes skiing and other things, is when it's a really supreme effort for a few seconds with rest, I can do it. But it was just that plodding, never ending, like hill climbing in the Tour de France, it's never going to work out for somebody like me.
Right. In my previous career, I was a photographer, and the New York Times Magazine sent me around for a couple of months, and I photographed the body types of different Olympians. It's really clear that the guy who's the rower cannot be the gymnast. Like, you're sort of no, not gonna work.
100%. 6'5", 6'7", giant muscles, 240 pounds, or 5 foot,
Yeah.
you know.
So it's wonderful that you found your athletic calling early in life. It's amazing. And then you moved into this idea of time, which is what I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
When did you become interested in the idea of time and the different sorts of time and how we perceive them?
It was really an epiphany I had as I exited sports. So I competed till late in life. I was 30 when I retired. Never had a real full-time job, like, and so I left the sport where, by the way, hundreds of seconds determine the trajectory of your life, right? Like, as Seinfeld puts it, I'll try to do it sideways like he does. Gold, silver, bronze, never heard. And this is the part that it's really terrible is that's true. I mean, that's fundamentally true, right? Like, so if you're not on the podium, nobody ever heard of you. And the notion that small increments of time can reset the trajectory of your future, which is 100% true in sports, as I exited sports, I found that to be true in real life. Just nobody's paying attention. So you got off at the exit or you didn't, you made the job interview or you didn't, you took the promotion or you didn't, you asked the girl out or you didn't. She said yes or she did. Like all of these really important unfoldings in life, these trajectory setting resets, almost all of them, maybe all of them take place literally in moments, not minutes, not months, not years. They may be years leading up to them, but almost all of them take place in moments. And the Greeks in their infinite wisdom knew this 2000 years ago. They had two words for time. They had chronos, clock time, the way we use it, trains, planes, automobiles getting to the right place on the right time. But kairos, the word they use 67% of the time, human time means when the trajectory is reset and a new future is unfolding. And that's
Oh,
the way time works.
oh, new future unfolding. I love that.
Yeah.
So in Kairos time, is it time is marked between the instances of new things unfolding?
New, interesting, unique things. I'll break it down for you from brain science. And yeah, think of it as like a yardstick. And the
Yeah.
bigger notches are the bigger moments, and the smaller notches are the smaller moments. And then in between is, well, maybe lost. So more notches is better. Simply put, more notches is better, more big notches is better. More big and medium-sized notches means a longer life. But there's really a series of key drivers that lead to the perception of time, not just passing, but the sense of how much of it we have. And this is where people get it completely wrong. I'm going to debunk the most common myth, which is there's all this study of how we experience time in the now or the present. And I'm going to tell you right now, David, it doesn't matter. How you're experiencing time right now does not matter when it comes to your sense of time in your life. What matters is what's remembered. You are the sum of your memories. The more of them you have, the more recallable they are, the longer you've lived. Simple as that. Now, here's where it gets interesting with the brain. The hippocampus is your memory writer. It's sweeping short-term memory to long-term memory about every 2 to 3 seconds right now. For you and me, probably every 2 to 3 seconds. It's the most common frame rate. It can go as slow as 7 seconds. If you're trying to memorize something or you're really working on a long division problem or something, that's the longest it can go. And so we do live in moments. Like there's no past, there's no present, there's no future. We live in this 2 to 3 second window by and large, except when the amygdala sits next to the hippocampus, wakes up, and then it says, write faster. So it's sitting next to the hippocampus in the back of your brain, and it only wakes up for two reasons: never do that again, or always do that again, or pulling it backwards to evolution, don't die, procreate. So this is why in a car crash, everything seems to slow down, because the amygdala tells the hippocampus to speed up writing. It also writes memories. It shunts memories as well. And so now you're writing 60 to 70, 80 times more memories per second than in a normal calm afternoon. And so that's why everything seems to slow down in a car crash and or when you're about to ask that girl out the first time. And those are the two big triggers for the amygdala: is don't die, procreate. So that's the beginning of the brain science of this stuff, and we'll get into more of that, but let's keep going.
So why is it the stuff that I did in the summer of when I was 14 is filled with these memories that I can recall with great detail? And if you ask me what I did yesterday or the day before, like, it's like, I don't know. Like, what did I eat? Who did I talk? Like, why is that?
So Summer's an 8-year-old, a 14-year-old are filled with a bunch of really interesting, unique experiences. So the amygdala basically is on high alert all through adolescence. It's like everything's scary or exciting. Everything makes you cry or laugh. Like you have a lot of peak experiences. And so the amygdala is always awake. It's always writing memories at a much faster rate. The other thing about amygdala driven memories is if you think of your memories as a stack of photos that also have sound and emotions, etc., they'll push the amygdala driven memories to the top. So they're more highly recallable because, again, the brain doesn't want you to die. It wants you to procreate. The other thing that's true is your brain is 3% of your mass, but 28 to 30% of your calorie burn on a calm day. So it's just a giant light bulb on the top of your head, and it's burning energy. And the hardest thing it does is write memories because it's super complicated. So what happens as you get older is like, well, nothing new to write down here. I'm not going to use that energy. I'm going to slow down and I'm gonna let it go. And so if you ever found yourself in the parking garage on a work day and you have no idea how you got there, that's because the brain said nothing new to write down here. And I would argue you're not even alive during those moments, because if the brain isn't writing it down, then did you exist? I'm not sure you did.
So are you advocating for more amygdala driven experiences throughout the day?
Not throughout the day. And this is where it gets a little tricky. And before we get further with amygdala, let's talk about the flow state for a little bit. Our friend
Yeah.
Stephen Coll being a
Yeah.
great expert in that. We have a multiplier effect of memory storage. And it's really three things, by the way. Was it written? Was it stored? And was it recalled? So did the brain write it down? Parking garage moment, it didn't. Did it write down? And can you find it? Well, that's also important, right? With a good hypnotist, you might be able to find some hidden memories, and they exist for us, and they do influence our behavior in other ways. But, was it written? Was it stored? Was it recalled? The other thing that happens every 48 hours or so is our brain defrags memories. It's like, all right, I don't think that one's that important. I don't think that one's that important. This is part of the dreaming cycle, by the way. It's like, get rid of that, get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of this. And so you've lost these memories. And so now you're left by and large with either really important, urgent, exciting, scary moments, except when the flow state is involved. Now, when the flow state's involved, your frame rate, your memory recall rate, I should say, goes up 4 to 5x. So if you're writing memories 70 to 80 times faster, and now you're recalling them 4 to 5 times better, that's a frame rate increase, or at least recall increase of 300 to 400 times. So if you are in an amygdala driven state and you're in the flow state, then you are actually learning, storing, and recalling information 300 to 400 times faster. This is why adventure athletes are excelling at such a rate that are so superior to safe, mundane sports. And so that's what you kind of want, is you want to design the kinds of moments, not every day, not every hour, that can get you into a heightened state of amygdala-driven memories. There's something unique, new, exciting, scary, fun, risky. And then you're also in your area of your strengths, your native endogenous talents. And when you can do both of those together, well, that's the kind of memories that have a before and after. Leave a notch in your mental yardstick and create a sense of expansive time such that you don't live 40 more years, you live 400.
One of the clearest memories I have in my mind was last year, the year before, when I was racing Super G at Sun Valley
Sounds
with a
right.
broken condyle in my left knee. not recommended. But the last 3 gates, I can tell you the exact position of my leg, what that snow felt like. I could draw it for you right now because it's like all of that. I want to do that every day. Like,
No, David, I sort of seek to either stumble into or design like 10 of these kind of things a year. Like if you can have 10 moments worth a year, you live 10 times longer. It's just kind of simple as that. By the way, per your story, for sure, I remember world trials in 95 when I was literally perfect on form. And I can remember every stroke of a 9-lap race. Like I can remember the whole thing perfectly. I was talking to a super famous MMA fighter who I had never heard of because I didn't watch it before, but I get his name either forward or backwards. It's Georges St. Pierre or St. Pierre Georges. I'm not sure. I think he's the most decorated MMA fighter. I was asking him this question. And he's like, oh my God, yeah, I've totally experienced this. He's like, I was in the title round a number of years ago and I saw the fist coming in slow motion. I knew it was going to hit me. I knew I wasn't going to be able to avoid it. And I looked in the crowd and I saw Cindy Crawford with her husband and we made eye contact. And then I took the punch. He's like, and I kept going. I was okay. But this is when your experience of time slows down because your frame rate goes up. That's the kind of experiences you want.
Joe Montana talking about one of the Super Bowls, and he's talking to the rest of the team, and he says, "Oh my God, guys, this is amazing!" And they're like, it's like they're down like 30 points, and they've got to like run the field, and they're like, "What's up?" He's like, "John Goodman's over there. Did you see him?" Like, yeah, supreme athlete in flow state. That's what happened.
Yes, 100%.
So we talk a lot here about novelty, and it would seem that that's key to the flow state, a certain amount of novelty. But I think bringing in new experiences, which I have to say as people, I mean, myself included, as we get older, we become resistant to novelty, right?
Yeah.
And bringing more of that in, heightened experience, more memories.
All right, so let's talk about like 6 key drivers. Maybe it's 5, depending how you combine them. And this kind of does also follow Kotler's sort of flow state dynamics. Put it in order. It doesn't have to always be this order, but this is a really good order. Is risk and uncertainty, followed by uniqueness, followed by emotional intensity, followed by physical intensity, relieved by beauty, and the flow state. And so these are the kinds of experiences I try to design for my clients when we do things. I took 11 YPO guys a few months back. I picked them up in a box van at the airport, shoved them in the back, the window, didn't know what they were doing. Drove out. I drove hectically for 45 minutes, and then I lurched inside. I got out and I ran away. I left a note on the seat, but they didn't catch it. I also left white powder. I had a bag of flour to follow. So they had to tramp through the woods, across some streams. Like they don't know. They have no, there was no agenda. We didn't tell them what was going on, but we were trying to get some risk and uncertainty, some uniqueness, some emotional intensity as they're starting to get like, what are we doing here? Like what's happening? Physical intensity of hiking up what turned out to be a pretty steep hill. And then they turned the corner, went down, and there's this underground grotto hot spring spa where they were greeted with champagne and robes and towels. And so they went from all these 4 sort of heightened states to complete
Wow.
relaxation and, hopefully the flow state as well. So these are the things we try to combine to create that kind of experience.
That is, I mean, so if I'm in the back of the box van, I think you're taking me to a black site. Like I've seen this in the movies. It doesn't turn out well.
It's 13 hours in Tijuana and there's no bathroom. See you then.
Oh, that's really wonderful. The way we started this was your athletic career, and it's true. In short track, it's just tiny amounts of time. In my old career, I photographed a lot of high-level athletes, and one of the things I found was if you're dealing with an athlete, it's all about numbers. So if you can tell somebody this is going to take 10 minutes or 12, and they'll remember exactly whatever I tell them. And whatever we do has to be within that time frame. And I found that really pretty much all the high-level athletes, like, it's not so much even with basketball players, they're like, it's very much time-oriented. I can see how you went from, short track to Kairos time. Makes complete sense to me. If someone is, say, a little older, essentially what you're saying is you can 10x your time because if you 10x your memories, you're essentially 10xing your time.
100%.
So what would you say to someone who is like, hey, time is just like passing by. I don't know, like, and I'm sure you get this all the time. What's your advice to them?
Well, it's to design some experiences into your life or for others, and it's a really fun way to do it. that are sort of time stopping that include these sort of 6 elements. I'll give you a couple quick stories. A client of mine heard this talk a few years ago. He's the CEO of a large company in Australia. He lived in Australia all of his son's life, but he was from England. Now, he grew up watching a UK-based soccer club, football club, and his son was a huge fan, even though he'd never been to London. So they watched all the games together. He's 12 years, about to turn 12 years old. He's got the jerseys and everything else, and his dad's like, "Oh, I know what I can do." So he gets a flight for his son and him. He doesn't tell his son where they're going. He has no idea. And then they get to the airport and they get on the plane. It's like, wait, we're going to London? That's a long flight. And he's like, yes. And then so they get to London. He's like, why are we here? And he's like, you'll find out. So they take the Uber to the stadium that he's been seeing for, all of his cognitive years, the last 7 years or so. And now he knows why they're there. So he's super pumped, right, to go see this game. But it's not over yet. Dad had made some arrangements, so they don't park up front. They go around back. The entire team files out, lines up against the back wall of the stadium, greets his son with a jersey, brings him in with them. He goes on the field. He warms up with them. He sits with them during the game. They all sign his jersey, slap him high fives because his dad made him the mascot for the day. Dad can't tell that story without crying, but son had an amazing experience too. He bought that for him, right? And money and time are fungible. And if you've got money, you should be spending it on some time. So that's an example story. I'll tell you my number one Kairos moment. It completely life trajectory changed. The only reason we're talking right now, David, is I went to the Olympics and I got a silver medal, which, if you think about it, is also second place and also first loser. And that's the way we competitive people tend to define it. So, and then I tried out for a second games. I ended up not making it. So I became a one-timer first loser. So that's who I identified with as a decade. And it was not a good feeling, right? Because you have to retire from sport and you don't know what the hell you're doing in real life and so forth and so on. But 10 years later, or 8 years later after I retired, I was invited to be the analyst for NBC at the Olympics. And so there I am back at the games. Everybody knew me. I knew most of the skaters, even though they're 8 years younger or longer. But 16 of 17 days of the Winter Olympics, I'm doing my job, interviewing the parents, coaches, and skaters, getting the backstory. But on the 16th day, the night before the gold medal round, which is always the last day of short track, we're always on the last day, a parent at dinner is sitting across from me. He looks at me, he looks nervous, and he says, "I need to talk to you." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we walk away from the dinner table, and we're away from the table, and he says, "I just want you to hear this, John. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you." And I said, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "You won't remember, but 12 years ago, after you won your silver medal, you brought it to a little reception in Bay City, Michigan. You put your medal around my son's neck, Alex. You signed an autograph. He'd never skated before. The next day, he joined the Bay City Speed Skating Club at age 11. And tomorrow, 12 years later, he is in the gold medal final."
Wow.
And just like that, the trajectory of my life changed. I
Wow.
didn't talk about it. I didn't watch it. Had nothing to do with it. Now I speak for a living and I tell this story all over the world. That's what Kairos, that's what time expanding moments are. And we can create them for others and for ourselves.
Oh, I love that. I love this idea of being able to create them for others. And you said something else. If you have money, spend it on time. Go in a little deeper on that.
Yeah. So time and money are fungible, right? We all trade our time for money. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we do with our time at our jobs and our careers, et cetera. But I know so many wealthy people they're terrible at trading their money for time. Like they're so caught up in the modus operandi of the way that they got there that they haven't figured out how to get out of it. And the thing is about time investments is they're very similar to financial investments. I have a whole matrix. I'll shoot it over to you. You can put it in the credits, but it's the time investment matrix. It's like, just like money, you cannot expect high returns from low risk. Do you expect high returns from your cash or bond investments? You do not, right? There must be a risk element to financial investments in order to get high returns. And the unicorn investments are the ones we all hope for, but they're relatively short term with high returns. We're trying to create unicorn time investments through some of these designs. And if you can get it right, man, it is unbelievable what you can create in literally moments.
It's never too late, right?
It's never too late. I mean, I was 47 before I even figured out what my career was. I never stood on a stage in my life till age 47. And now this is all I do, and it's all I want to do, and I love it. I love writing and speaking. That's all I ever want to do for the rest of my life.
More from my conversation with John Coyle about time after a brief message from our sponsors who make this program possible. By the way, you might never run out of money, but you're going to run out of time. So let's pay attention. If you've ever caught me between meetings or getting home from a hike, chances are you'd find me with one of these in hand, a Maui Nui venison snack stick. I've been through every clean protein trend you can imagine, but this one, it's the real deal. Each stick has 10 grams of protein and just 55 calories. That's more protein per calorie than salmon or grass-fed beef. And it's not just clean, it's delicious. The original has a subtle hint of sweetness, and the peppered one, bold, savory, with just enough kick. The peppered is a favorite, but I do keep both on hand. What makes it even better? It's meat with a mission. Maui Nui sources their venison from wild axis deer on Maui, an invasive species that threatens the island's ecosystem. So every bite is helping to restore balance to Hawaii's environment. No hormones, no fillers, just pure nutrient-dense protein from animals that live wild and free. It's the kind of snack I actually feel good about. Fuel for a longer, stronger life. Plus, right now, Maui Nui is actually giving away a free 12-pack of their jerky sticks with your first order of $79 or more. Just go to mauinuivenison.com/ageist to grab yours. That's MAUINUI venison.com/ageist. It's hot out there. And if you're like us, you're chasing sunlight, long hikes, and maybe even a splash in the ocean when you can. But all that fun comes with a hidden cost: hydration. That's where Element comes in, LMNT. It's not just about quenching thirst. It's about replacing the essential electrolytes your body actually needs. Plus, good news, my favorite flavor, lemonade salt, is back in stock. It's a salty, sweet crowd pleaser that brings back fond memories, and it keeps me sharp whether I'm on a trail or at my desk. Hydration is one of those simple daily wins that stack up over time. So visit drinkelement.com/ageist and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any electrolyte drink mix. That's drinklmnt.com/ageist. Stay salty, stay strong. I want to switch to the idea of focusing on strength versus focusing on weakness. A lot of people will, they come to me and they say, well, whatever, this is my age, this is my condition. And it's all sort of defined around what's not there. The comparison between now and some other time versus focusing on the strength. Talk to me a little bit about why that doesn't work so well.
I think this is a really sad commentary on life, but it's a Thoreau quote. Most men live lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. I think that the vast majority of human beings on this planet never figure out their native talent or talents. And so they go through life, doing the best they can with what they think they have. And I'm going to make a metaphor here. I'm going to try it out. I've never done it before, but do you remember the Skinner box back from like high school
Yeah.
or college
Sure.
psychology?
Yeah.
So you put a rat in a little box and there's a
Huh?
lever. And if you pull the lever, depending on the way the experiment is set up, you get a pellet as a reward, a food. Now, the part that they forget to talk about a lot is some percentage of rats, and I think it's a significant, never pull the lever. So they're not even really part of the experiment. So they tend to ignore them, but I think that's most humans. So now let's get back to the metaphor. The metaphor is the pulling the lever and getting the pellet is this my area of strengths? And if it is, well, then I get a reward. I finish second place, first place. Like you start to get into this worse, but it's the thing about athletics and sports and music, and I think all things in life is it is not one pull gets one reward. That is a certain sort of operant conditioning that is not life. And so this is forget the technical term for it, but when there is no set time and no set reward. And what we actually know about rats in cages, though, is when they have no set time and no set reward, those are the ones that work the hardest. As long as they've at least gotten a pellet a couple times. And that gets back to, it's intermittent conditioning. So I think people that stumble into their strengths get the pellet and then they want it so bad, according to Kotler, right? They first get, second is epinephrine and then dopamine and then serotonin and then anandamide and then oxytocin in that order, which you would say if you get all 5 of those in a row, you'd be dead or drooling if they came externally. But when it's coming from your brain, this makes you this amazing, powerful person that can pursue things well and above others. And so I think, we are all in a Skinner's box, and some people never stumble into their pellet of reward that pushes them into the work frame that they want to get those high rewards. But those of us that are lucky enough to have found that reward, and I found my second, Skinner's box, 47 years old, around speaking, corporate life was fine, but it wasn't for me. I did it for 20 years. The advice would be, if you're not feeling self-fulfilled, if you're not at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, you probably need to be doing something else. And what got you there won't get you there. The things that got you there were finding safety and security and routine and being a master of your expertise and getting the feedback of your peers. And then you're standing on the fourth, not the fifth level, and you're looking around with vertigo because the place to get to self-actualization is probably a tumble off the edge to start all the way over before you can get to the top of the pyramid.
I want to go back to this idea of risk with this.
Yeah.
Pulling the lever, whatever it is, involves risk for a couple of reasons. One, is it a shock or a pellet? You don't know, right? It's just a
Right.
lever. But you have to take the action to take the risk. I have a theory that essentially a number of people who athletes at your level, most people, what they are most afraid of is not failing. It's actually discovering their greatness and owning it, claiming their because claiming greatness is terrifying. Right.
Absolutely.
You work with a lot of people and this idea of pulling the lever, how do you motivate that to happen?
The easiest metaphor is to work with children who are willing to quit anything at all times. And so, but this is where like the metaphor sort of goes off the rails, which is, yes, you must keep practicing something for some period until you realize it's not your native talent.
Mhm.
And that's not 2 weeks, but it's not 10 years, right? There's some middle ground where you can figure out, all right, this really isn't for me. And I think it's roughly a 2-year rule. That's what I always talk about is like, it's roughly 2 years. Like if you're in a career, if you're in a major, if you're in music, if you're in the arts, if you're in athletics and you're not seeing progress despite diligent efforts after roughly 2 years, it's probably time to either change your frame, quit and do something else, or make it a hobby. That's what golf is for. You don't have to be great at everything, but you don't want to make it your primary source of income or primary relationship. So yeah, keep trying new things and, take those risks to try those things, but you got to give it some, the college try because if you just dabble in it, it doesn't matter. People that, go to Toastmasters twice and say, all right, I checked that box, but I'm never going to be a TEDx speaker. You can't know. I would have bet my life that I could never stand on stage and talk to 2,000 people. Like I would have bet all things because if you'd asked me 10 years ago, what's the scariest thing you can think of? I would have said standing on stage in front of 2,000 people. Now I love it. Like, but I would never have known that had I never been invited to do a TEDx and prepared for it and did all that stuff. So, trying those new things in a way that matters is really, may I tell you a quick story, David?
Please, love stories.
So I was telling this sort of framing around time and time perception and expansion of time to a friend of mine. Her name is Amalia, and we were in Monterrey, Mexico, and we were walking up this mountain. I was saying how, you got to take these risks. If you're not really taking any risks, you're not got the rewards. And she stopped short. She's like, you're going to make me do it. I'm like, do what? She said, I got invited yesterday to sing in front of 10,000 people at a festival. I haven't sang in many years, so I told them no. I'm like, oh, no, you have to do it. Like, you have to do it. I'm like, in fact, just call them right now. Like, you got self-service right now. You call right now. So I made her call. She called. She's like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it. So she had 6 weeks to prepare. She called me 3 weeks later in tears saying, I hate you. I hate you. Why did you make me do this? I'm going to be a disaster. I'm going to be laughed off the stage. And then she called me 6 weeks later and said, John, today was one of the best days of my adult life. I killed it. I got 2 standing ovations and more importantly, the last 6 weeks were the most expansive of my adult life.
Wow.
And that's what works, right? Getting fully into some new experience, some new risky but rewarding activity is the kinds of things that lead to the rewards, that lead to the notches in your mental yardstick, that lead to a perceptibly longer life. No joke, I'm at least 10 years into 2025 because I've gotten good at it.
I don't play safe the way some people play safe, but I play safer than I used to. And I think that putting in these, as you're describing this, designing these, sort of peak experiences throughout the year and, calendaring them in. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing and who knows how that's going to go. But that's the whole point. Like,
Right.
if you know how it's going to go, like the amygdala is shut off, right?
100%. There's no risk if you know the outcomes. It's unfortunate reality. I'll give you 3 quick tips.
Yeah,
These
please.
that I do all the time.
Okay.
First, if you have a significant other, this is one quick way to gift them experiences. If you're taking them somewhere new they've never been before, let's say, and it just happened with me, like I went to Hanalei Bay in Hawaii and I had never been there before. And
Beautiful.
I had researched a little bit, and I knew that once we got to this hotel, right in the edge of the lobby was the view of the entire Nepali coast. So I simply put my hands around her eyes and walked her forward for 100 feet so that she didn't get the slow transition to the Nepali coast. She got the
Right.
whoa.
Whoa.
It's
Yeah.
so easy. I do that one all the time. And then two others, which are really fun. They're risky, but they're fun. Is the generalist term is do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. At its simplest is like the hottest day of the year, I'm definitely going out somewhere and I'm gonna go jump in a cold pond up in the mountains. Like, so go out when it's hot and go out when it's cold. If it's absolute blizzarding, you gotta be outside. Just go experience it because nobody else is there. If it's pouring down rain, go outside. If it's sleeting, go out. If it's hailing, go outside. Like, just go where everybody else won't go. You'll never forget those moments.
I remember 3 years ago, I went out to my car and I was like 20 below 0. And, it was just like, "What am I doing here?" And went up on the mountain, and I remember it was 10 below 0, and it was so cold, John, the air had crystallized. So the air was like sort of like a shiny snow globy thing. It was like the most amazing thing. And I thought, the only way I'm seeing this is because 'cause I'm up here
Right.
in this weather where my wife is like, "Do you understand what's outside? You really going out there?" It's like, "Yeah, I gotta do this thing." So that's right. Just do what other people do because we are naturally wired, right, for comfort.
That's right. 100%.
That's the thing. More comfort, softer chair, easier, better, everything. And the older we get, that bias towards comfort is where we naturally lean. But the value is on, not all the time, but intermittently dipping into, short-term discomfort.
100%. And that's right. Intermittently is important.
Yeah.
And, I actually I've been telling this metaphor for a while, but I literally right now I have a bird's nest on my deck. And, I would always say, like, it is important to have the nest before you jump out. It really is, right?
Yeah.
Can't live at the edge of your experience every day, all day. You need to have a safe place to return to. You need to be able to recover. When I travel, yeah, I don't sleep a lot for, 3, 4, 5 days when I'm overseas or whatever. But then I come home and I crash and I have a safe place to return to. That's really important. By the way, I was watching and I didn't know this to be true, but the mother right now is trying to get rid of these two birds and she's dragging them by the neck to the edge of the balcony and they haven't jumped yet, but she's literally pushing them out of the nest. Like, this is a real thing. I didn't know this. But this brings me to type 2 fun, which was introduced to me by Christine Sperber of MEA. And I'd never heard it before, but the metaphor she gave, and she gave me a specific experience, because if you and you're a skier, you know this, like, which experience will be better, more memorable? And part of it is the same. It is a beautiful bluebird day after a foot and a half of powder and you get to the ski area early and you're the first lift up and you have this amazing rundown. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is same deal, but you get there 3 hours early and you hike for 3 hours to the top of that run, suffering, sweating, freezing, frustrated, working so hard. And then you get to the top and you have the same run. Which run's better?
Right. Right.
Always the
Absolutely.
second run because suffering before pleasure increases the pleasure. It's just the reality of the human condition. Great study referenced by Daniel Gilbert in his book, but you put people and you just put their arm in ice, which is super painful, as it turns out. And they measure like the various chemicals in the brain. The release of pain is identical to joy. So we literally experience joy from the release of pain. And that's why type 2 fun works. Like you suffer your way up the mountainside on a bike, but now you got the view in the downhill. You suffer yourself up a ski hill by tramping up it versus lift, and you get this release of pain, and then the joy is literally double fold. And that's kind of the way life works, unfortunately. It is important, though. The order is important. Suffering must precede joy because when you get that inversed, I mean, that's heroin, right? That's a bad night of drinking. Like that's the wrong order of events.
So what I understood you to say is that if we redefine better, not as pleasurable, but as memorable, the goal is memorable, not pleasurable.
100%. And, my personal mantra is design a tomorrow to really live today to create a yesterday worth remembering.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I have all this like sayings going through my head. lives of quiet desperation, or, I mean, shoot me in the head. Like, I'm not signing up for that. Oh,
But people inadvertently sign up for it. They don't know they're
yeah.
doing.
I mean, similar to you, like, I spoke on stage. My first time was TEDx in front of 4,000 people in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I used to do scary climbs, and this was probably the top 3 scariest things I had ever done in my life. Because I mean, you've done this, right? You get that tap on the shoulder and you go out to that red circle, and if you blow it, there are 5 cameras recording this thing, and you will be a YouTube sensation of the guy for the
Why?
next 20 years. You're the one who, like, lost their shit out there, right? You don't want that. But, once you do it, it's like, "Oh, that was I'm alive. Like, I did that. That was amazing. Yeah, let's do that again." I think about risk a lot, and relative risk, and apportioning risk. And I think about it in terms of, you get a risk pie, and then you apportion the pie, but you
Yes.
do not eat the entire pie every day,
No. That's important.
because, like, you can't do that, right? So, personally, I'm an extremely slow, cautious driver. I no longer road bike, because you're not just gonna scrape your knees, you're gonna die.
Yep.
So, I sort of bring down, "Okay, I'm gonna take all of my physical risk, and I'm just gonna do this here. My emotional risk is here, my, but you can't be, like, sort of all in on all this all the time." And it's also relative that, for some people, I use the analogy, like, for some people, it's terrifying to speak to someone in an elevator. You get in an
100%.
elevator and you say, like, "Oh, nice shoes," or, "Yeah, how you doing? Oh, it's hot today." That could be someone's limit of risk, and that's fine. I appreciate that. Like, we're all different, you know? Whatever that is, though, bump against it, but understand, like, you can't live like that all the time.
I do. I have a relative that lives a life on the edge every day, and that's no way to live. Then they're frazzled, and they actually don't remember anything because the brain's too busy writing down everything all the time.
Right.
I have a bad metaphor I'm trying out on you here.
Okay.
So it's of a bob, like let's say a metal ball on a string, and a maybe a vessel shaped like this. And so you have this bob and you're moving it around, and this is you taking risks, right? Until you hear the tink, you don't know if you've hit the edge. And I think a lot of people play in this safe center, but what you don't want to do, per your point, is you want to swing this thing so hard you're going to break the vessel, right? So you've got to find the edges of what is your comfort zone and touch on those without going too far, right? Kotler opens his book with the story of a skier who died at 26, I think. But I would say that I forget his name at the moment, but that man probably lived more in 26 years than most people live in 80. And so if you're comparing somebody who
Yeah.
lived a safe, comfortable life to 80 to somebody that lived all the way up till they were 26 or 30, I don't know. I'm going to choose 26 or 30. Like, I don't want to go out at 30, but if 30 means 300 and 80 means 40, I'm going to choose 300 at 30 than 40 at 80.
This is really interesting how this intersects the longevity community. I know Brian Johnson. We had Brian on here. And so, I like
I love
Brian.
what he does. I'm so glad he's doing what he's doing.
I am too. Like,
Solving the wrong problem, but
it's like, okay, you've entered this, you've started this conversation out there. That's really great. But, like, your life is so compartmentalized. And I think that a lot of people in the longevity community, it's all about Chronos time, right? It's all about, like,
all in
how
that.
many more years, not
How many more clock
Kairos
years can I
time.
get? And what am I losing potentially
Yeah,
in this robotic approach? Don't get me wrong. We do a lot, if not most of the longevity things when it comes to at least some of these controllables. But, if I'm at a client event and they've got food to serve, I'm not saying no. I'm not choosing to walk away from this moment to
right.
bond with other people over a glass of wine and a piece of pizza because I've got to, hold myself to this standard 100% of the time. 98 is probably okay. I'm willing to take, an Advil with a red food coloring on it once every 6 months. It's not going to kill me, you know?
We had Gabby Reese on a few weeks ago, and, like, her and, well, Laird, like, I mean, what did you say? Dopamine resistant. Yeah,
Yes.
dopamine resistant. But I like those guys because I mean, they do every performance enhancing longevity trick that you can imagine. And then they're big into Kairos time. And I think that they're exceptional human beings. I couldn't live like they live, but I think that it's an interesting thing. The sort of discussions I've heard a lot recently about people sort of pushing back against this sort of quantified, very digital sort of way of being. And they don't use the word Kairos time, but they're talking about more emotionally connected, if not emotionally heightened experiences and away from I've got a lot of this sort of stuff that I strap onto my body. And it's like, okay, I learned some stuff there, but not letting that rule how we live, right? Wow. John, we've had such a wonderful conversation. We have to hang out sometime. Is there anything you want to leave our people with today, John?
Well, I mean, I said it before, but I want to say it again because I think, I would imagine your audience, by and large, are relatively financially secure, but temporally they may not. Their time investments, their time capital, it may not be being invested wisely. You cannot expect low risk time investments to bring high returns in terms of your time perception. So, time and money are fungible. You're trading your time for money your whole life. It's time to trade your money for time. Go buy yourself an experience for yourself, your loved ones, your kids, your family, your extended family. Go buy them something that's worth remembering.
Right on. John, if people want to get in touch with you, what would they do?
Super easy. I'm johnkcoyle.com. I have a blog, I have a YouTube channel, I have all of my 5 TEDx videos, and I am a professional speaker by trade. But my favorite thing to do, just by the way, is not just do a keynote. And this is more and more I'm doing this, is I'll do an adventure with risk, uniqueness, emotional intensity, physical intensity, beauty, and flow state, followed by explaining it with the talk. So that's my favorite modus operandi these days. And I've just booked one yesterday to do it for YPO Southern California. It's going to be super fun.
Wow. Box truck?
No box truck this time. I can't explain because they might see it
Oh, okay.
and nobody gets to know.
This has just really been a joy, John. I'm glad that Christine connected us and we have so many overlapping circles.
Yeah, sure.
This has been
Sure.
really
Well, we definitely
enjoyable. I
have to figure
appreciate
out a way to hang out. Maybe it's on the ski hill. I love to ski, so let's do that.
We'll make that happen. John, let's stay in touch. It's been a
Yes, sure.
pleasure. Time is all about what you remember. It's not about your watch. So let's
You
keep
are the
that in
sum of
mind.
your memories, David.
That's right. Make them last. Thanks so much for your time today, John.
Wow, what a conversation with John. I felt like was just a wealth of knowledge. And I saw you as you were listening to him, and I was doing the same thing. I just kept nodding as he was talking because he was dropping so many just memorable quotes that I wanted to write down. He said, "You're the sum of your memories," which immediately got me thinking about affect theory. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but we really are. Our whole perception of our experience is based on our memories. And if we have this capacity to create really vivid memories through ourselves throughout our lives, it does make our life seem that much longer and that much more rich. There were so many moments in there for me, but what was the most memorable moment for you out of your conversation with John?
It doesn't matter how long you live. I think this whole, I mean, well, it sort of does, but what I got out of that is this whole longevity bro thing, putting numbers up on the board, how, your biomarkers, how long you're actually living is misguided. That, yeah, it's better to live longer than not. But, what he was saying there is if you can pack in 10 awesome Kairos moments in your year, which he defines as pivotal moments, things that change the trajectory of your life, deeply memorable things. If you can do 10 of those a year versus doing one a year, or what a lot of people do, like one every 10 years, well, then you're like effectively living 100 times longer, even if your chronological is the same. So, I mean, the ideal thing here is you do both, right? You live longer, healthier, but more meaningful, impactful times marketed by these really memorable. What I like is it doesn't matter if it's like super pleasurable or not. That's not really the thing. And I think that's like something else that people get totally wrong. Like, oh, we're just got to be comfortable here. Oh my God, it's cold outside. Why would I go out there? Well, you just got to say to yourself, what's more important here? being comfortable or having the ability to slow down time, which I think this is a really profound thing, bringing this idea into this conversation around health span, lifespan, longevity, all of that. This needs to be included, and it's been left out and sort of lost among biomarkers.
Exactly, and as he was talking, all I kept thinking about was this idea of quality over quantity, and that's really what he was talking about in terms of how he was framing, I think, expanding your life and making it feel longer, not necessarily that you're actually making it longer, but your perception of that definitely changes, and it makes your life feel more expansive. And I did love what he said about them not necessarily being pleasurable, because as he was talking, and I think you remarked on it in the interview, a lot of those really memorable moments, even from like childhood through now, the ones that really sit with you that you can remember every finite detail, they aren't necessarily pleasurable in the moment, but they make for a good story later, like he was remarking on. And it's something that lives in your mind rent free, that you don't have to make an effort to conjure up. It is an experience that you fully embodied and can go back to really easily, which yeah, is a really interesting way of just thinking about your life overall. It's not in years, it's just in moments.
That's the name of the game. We're going to take a brief break from our ad sponsors who make this program possible. And when we're back, Margaret May is going to bring us some confounding, interesting stories. I hear there's a rumor, something about Brian Johnson coming up. Ooh, that's always interesting. See you in a minute. As someone who thinks a lot about aging, I've tried most everything, from cutting-edge tech to the simplest things like walking more and sleeping better. But what really caught my attention recently is something that feels quietly revolutionary. It's called Fatty 15. This isn't just another supplement. Fatty 15 is built around C15, a newly discovered essential fatty acid, the first to be found in over 90 years. That's right, discovered by Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson while working with aging dolphins in the US Navy. Dolphins, who knew they'd teach us so much about human health? What makes C15 remarkable is how it repairs and protects our cells, boosting energy, supporting sleep, cognitive function, and even smoothing out those stiff joints we start to notice more as we age. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and is a key healthy aging nutrient, which helps to slow biological aging at the cellular level. In fact, when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and age faster. When our cells age, our bodies age too. Fatty 15 is clean, 100% pure, vegan, and free from all the junk you don't need. Over 70% of users report real benefits within 16 weeks. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/ageist and using code AGEIST at checkout. So, if you want to age like you mean it, gracefully, powerfully, and with purpose, Fatty 15 is a smart place to start.
All right, so the top wellness stories that caught my eye this week, speaking of longevity here, we have our first one, psilocin and anti-aging. From Science Daily, early research is showing that psilocin, the metabolite of psilocybin, that main psychoactive compound responsible for hallucinogenic effects of magic mushrooms, all that jazz, it might actually have anti-aging properties. Still early days, but these researchers are exploring whether it's neuroplasticity benefits or cellular health. Something is opening up more longevity pathways. Then we have regenerative farming as a wellness travel trend that's popping up. We've talked a lot about travel trends here. Vogue reported that the spa is really no longer. A growing number of wellness travelers are turning to soil. So we're going back to our roots here, literally. And last but not least, you mentioned Brian Johnson. Yes, we are talking about him again. He is thinking of pivoting out of Blueprint. Business Insider reports that Brian Johnson, he's shifting gears. He's moving away from his startup to focus on his own religion instead. So we're all watching closely to see what he does next. Can you guess what his religion is called?
Don't die.
Ding, ding, ding.
Brian. Okay. Well, since we ended with Brian, let's start with Brian. I don't know. Brian is still one of the most interesting people I have ever spoken to. It sounds like a good move for Brian. I like that he's going to start a religion called Don't Die. Through the 10,000 years of human history, this is not a particularly unique religion, but I think his spin on it that I don't think he actually believes he's not going to die, but that we can live a little longer. And what does that mean? I think that's probably a good discussion. And I think, running a supplement company sounds like a pain in the ass. So go
Basically his
Brian.
words, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. That is to say that I think he announced on X, which is a whole other thing, like to announce this sort of thing on X, but it is modern world. I don't know.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
other
that didn't really surprise me that much. I mean, the bio people who are really deep in the biohacking space and how regimented and ritualistic they are about it does border kind of on a religion
Oh,
to
it's
begin.
totally.
So it
It's
seems like a natural
yeah.
kind
I
of
mean, it's
progression to switch what you're calling it and focus more on the ethos of it rather than the actual
and
meditation practice.
Brian's religion is just 2 steps this side of Calvinism. So, he's sort of the opposite of Kairos time. He's all about Chronos time. I don't know how much of Brian's day he spends in some kind of a pod hooked up to some electrical device or being very careful, never expose himself to UV light. I mean, okay, Brian, like, have at it. Not the life I want. I admire you for doing this and having this conversation, but I will not be joining your religion. I'm sorry.
I guess working backwards here, then we had the regenerative farming, which is similar to kind of like the religion piece with Brian. It seems like we're just kind of moving backwards. Of course, reconnecting with nature is going to be good for our health and wellness, but it is funny to me that it's like, oh, we're going to go to a farm and we're going to be really hands
Well,
on and immerse ourselves in this.
this came from Vogue. So can you imagine Anna Wintour out there with like a shovel in the mud? No. I mean, that's absurd. She's not going to do that.
I
So,
know. I'm curious again, like if this is speaking of kind of our conversation with time, if this is just a way for people to create a really memorable, not necessarily fully pleasurable moment, but it's gonna be something so different from their day-to-day life and even just, like, other travel
yeah,
experience. They're gonna walk home with a memory instead of necessarily a restful
yeah.
vacation. I'm curious how much work these people are actually doing,
Yeah,
though,
I
once
mean, this
done.
is a little bit goofy. This is like rich people, too much time, too much money, not quite sure what to do with their lives. It reminds me of going to the gym and they've got this like 100-pound tractor tire in there. So you get to behave as if you're like, some blue collar construction worker and you can flip this tire and feel good about it. So that connects you to something. I don't know. It feels good to like walk around and grow plants and stuff, but that you have to like go to, I don't know, you're gonna go to Nepal and dig a ditch. Okay, great. Maybe you should
Yeah.
get some more meaning in your life.
The regenerative piece, though, I'm wondering if they're just using like, if that's, like, a buzzword or if it really is kind of weaving in educational experiences about, like, regenerative farming in our food system. Because I think that that could be a
Yeah,
relatively valuable experience for most people then to really reconnect with where
I th I think so. I think most of the high-end sort of wellness, sixth senses sort of things out there, I mean, this is not sort of a new thing. They've been doing this for a number of years. Self-sustaining, regenerative farming, working with the communities.
Mhm.
So it's not this like weird thing from Mars that like plunked down in the middle of somebody's community. I think MEA has a regenerative farm. I think these are all good things. I don't mean to diss.
Oh, no, they've definitely been there. I think it's just catching on now as this, like, hot travel
Yeah. Okay.
destination, which,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
looking forward to the photo of Anna with the shovel. I want to see that.
she would still probably look super glam.
Yeah, exactly.
And then our first one, which we're touching on last here, the psilocin and anti-aging. Had you heard about these new studies? This one was from Emory University.
I think this is all very interesting. So I think probably this has to do with something about neuroplasticity, but we don't really know because so many of these compounds that we take, even the ones that are pharmaceuticals that are highly studied, we don't really know what's the pathway, what exactly are they doing? We just sort of see this, there's this outcome, but we don't really know what's happening here. Is this something intercellular that's happening? Is it with the organs? Is this something that's happening neuroplasticity? We don't really know. Same with the GLP-1s. Like people are like, not really sure. Seems to do this thing. We don't know why. But that's not uncommon. I would say the vast majority of these natural compounds that we take and even pharmaceuticals, the exact pathway of what's happening is not clearly understood. We just know there's this outcome. Maybe there's some other stuff that happens along the way. And
Mhm.
I think these things will be more understood. What I do like is that so many of the things out there that were previously just considered untouchable are now being rethought. And here I'm going to touch a third rail here. So, like, whatever you think of RFK, I think some of what he's doing is, I don't really agree with. But I think that having sort of a top down, like, rethink on everything is good. What's happened with so many things is that there's this sort of baked in, sort of sunk cost of this. We have certain ideas that we thought were correct. And drugs are bad. Just don't do any drugs. You're gonna, like, you take this stuff, you're gonna jump off a building and kill yourself or something. Well, that's not really the case. And we're seeing this. Nicotine. Maybe the problem with nicotine is the dosage and the delivery device, but otherwise, perhaps there's good things about it. And opening up different ideas, and I think there will be a lot of mistakes made along the way. But one of the things that we can say for sure is that in America, we spend 50% more than any other country on healthcare, and we have worse health outcomes. Okay, so we can all agree that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So let's start looking at these other things that are sort of baked into that need to be re-examined. Well, that was like a real sidetrack on psilocybin, but
No, I mean, it's always so fascinating to me. I'm a big Michael Pollan fan, and I read
oh
How to
yeah,
Change Your Mind on forget the full title, How to Change Your Mind on Drugs.
yeah.
Anytime anything related to psychoactive active compounds pops up, I'm always like, "Ooh, like, what if they they're doing more research
Yeah.
now. We're finally, like, lifting the veil on this being like, no, like, don't touch this.
Well,
This is
I
bad."
I mean, we had Gabby Reese on, and Gabby was telling me she microdosed psilocybin every day for 3 months because she found that she was developing something called helmet head. It's her
Mm.
word, which is her inability to think creatively and differently about things. And she said she's never taken any sort of, like, she's never tripped, she doesn't drink, she's never smoked, she doesn't do any of that stuff. But she thought, okay, I'm gonna do this for 3 months to help expand my imagination and get myself out of helmet head. And she found that to be really effective.
We've been alive for as long as these drugs have been alive, and they're kind of interwoven into our kind of human story.
Don't do the toad though. Like,
Yeah.
don't go toad. For all you people out there who read Michael Pollan, like,
Yeah, his
I know
tone.
somebody who's done the toad. Don't go full toad. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Before we wrap on this segment, you might be interested in these numbers because they are pretty astounding. So this study that was done, like I said, at Emory University, it reported that psilocin delayed cellular aging. So they're looking at cellular aging in
Mm.
particular with the neuroplasticity. Human cells lived 50% longer, and the treated mice gained roughly 30% longer lifespan. So those numbers, they weren't like small. They seemed pretty.
Yeah, but those are in a dish, right?
Yes, and that's what I
Yeah.
said, that's what you always have to remember, like, any of
Yeah.
these studies, it's a closed kind of container,
Yeah.
it's being conducted in a lab, but
Very,
s
just for, like, jargon here. So there's in vivo and in vitro. In
Yep,
vitro means in a dish, meaning there's no human attached to this. There's no digestive system. There's no immune system. There's none of that. It's in a dish. In vivo means like an actual human. So if they were to do a study and pull out cells from the body, muscle cells, nerve cells, whatever, and look at that, well, that's a whole other animal.
totally, which is a good reminder for all of us looking at these studies. You always wanna look at all the little
Yeah.
nuances. So I know those 3 wellness news stories, particularly the last one, we were talking about longevity again, but if we're switching gears back to how John was framing this concept of time, living, expanding our sense of time, I think we gain a lot more in terms of turning our attention to how we are living and creating those small moments that can have a really long impact on how we're perceiving our life.
That's right. We talk a lot about it's not too late. These memories are 100% within your control right now today. So you can create a memory. You know what? I was thinking, like, well, maybe tonight I'm going to take all my clothes off and run around the neighborhood with my sneakers in the dark and wait for somebody to call the police. And, well, maybe not do that. Okay. That's probably too close to taking psilocybin. I don't know. But you can do a lot of things out there, pull yourself out of your comfort zone and do something novel with a little bit of risk. And you create a memory and you just extended your life.
John was great. He made me wanna get up and do something unexpected today.
Absolutely. It's never too late. Real quick, before we let you go, we want to ask a favor of you, our ageist audience. We want to hear your It's Not Too Late stories. Tell us about a time when you defied aging stereotypes, made a fresh start, opened a new business, climbed a mountain, whatever's going on for you. Leave your stories in the comments or email them to david@weareageist.com, because starting next week, we are going to start featuring your stories in this very section of the show to inspire others and expand our community. You know what aging is? It's a flex. Show us what you've got. That's it for this week's episode. If you haven't already, head over to ageist.com/newsletter. Subscribe. Stay in the loop with stories that inspire, recipes that fuel, profiles that move you. Remember, it's never too late. We'll see you next week, unless I'm locked up in the local jail for running naked around Park City at night. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Bye now.